Hi, everybody. Welcome to our new format. Now we are podcast too. You're welcome.
You guys have asked us to turn our channel into a podcast.
Yeah,
it
you
just
have.
makes it more accessible for you guys, so you can tune in and listen to us or watch us if you would like. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify. Hey, we're sensory overlords. We're everywhere.
Actually, we're the neurodivergent girls, but we are also overlords. So, got to represent both of us.
Exactly.
Both of our alter egos.
Exactly.
A little bit to the extra because we can't help it.
Yeah.
We are extra in all the ways.
Mm-hmm. So this is our first official podcast format for our channel.
Yeah.
And we're going to open it up with a topic that we deal with all the time, which is we don't mean to be mean.
No, we don't. We're actually really try to be nice, but even if we practice and try to be mindful of our words, sometimes our voice has an edge to it. We're very blunt. And we feel, I know I always feel of like, I love that friend that's going to tell me my business because I need to know my business, and it's one of those, yeah, we all get a little bit, about things, especially certain things we're more sensitive. Welcome to Kat. This is Nebula, by the way.
It's Nebula.
Nebula. So, but with us, I think it's an autistic thing. It is. It is, because what we'll do is we'll get really blunt, but we'll also sound very neutral and almost robotic. My friend used to call me Spock because it's one of those of like, you sound like you have no emotion because you're very even. Right. And you're basically getting your words out. So it sounds like you don't have emotion, but you do care. Yeah. In fact, we care more. I feel like with autism, there's extra layers to it. So it's one of those we process in a totally different way. It takes us longer sometimes.
I have resting bitch face, but I also have resting bitch voice. So sometimes I don't sound robotic. Sometimes there is a little bit of an edge or a twinge or a bitchiness to my voice, and I don't mean to be. Especially when I know I'm about to deliver bad news or news that I'm a little bit sensitive. Maybe I have a little bit of that rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria situation.
Well, it's like your hurt feelings are coming in, at least about somebody else, because you're empathizing so much.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be delivering bad news, I'm already like preemptively feeling bad for you. Yeah. Then I'm also kind of sort of worried about how you're going to respond to me, like, the whole don't shoot the messenger thing.
Exactly.
So when I do try to mitigate my voice, I either sound super bitchy, or if I try to sound nice, I sound like I'm being condescending or like I'm talking down to people.
Well, exactly. Because I've always gotten that too, of I'm trying to help somebody, but they think I'm a know-it-all too. Just because I'm like, well, I know this information, or this is what I know, and I'm trying to help you. And they're like, oh, well, you think you know everything. You're always this and think you know everybody more than somebody else. I'm just, if I know something, I want to help you. Right. But my voice can make it sound like, I guess, I'm talking down to you when I'm not, because I'm very neutral with people. I really don't have, I pretty much, I have the capacity to talk to anybody.
And you're diplomatic.
I'm especially these days.
I'm not.
Especially these days, because you have to think, I'm Italian and I'm from Memphis. Yeah. That's my background. So I had a lot more attitude when I was younger, and I had anger issues because I had to get over a lot of stuff. It was very hard for me emotionally to deal with myself, to the point of completely blocking myself off, probably starting in like high school, because, you get bullied and you start doing that protective thing. So that's one of those of like, I came out talking to everybody, able to relate to anybody, able to adjust to anybody. And that's one of the things they talk about with masking, which is much different as a female than a male, because I always said I'm a chameleon. I can adjust to anybody. I adjust to their energy, but I adjust to the way they talk too. If I'll start talking really fast, like Northern, and I'll have that accent. Or if I'm talking to somebody like Southern, my Southern will come out. But it's one of those too with people with accents that happens too, to the point of I feel like I have to apologize because I will start talking in their accent, and I don't want them to think I'm making fun of them, because that's happened before.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where I've been like literally like, sorry, I'm Italian, I smack. I can't help it, especially if I'm like talking and I'm like passionate about something. But this has been like our whole life.
Hands, she wouldn't be able to speak. If she couldn't move her hands, she
I
couldn't
move them
speak.
less than I used to. Like real.
I love it.
That's what I'm saying. I am still who I am. I am still Memphis. I am still very, very Italian. My last, my maiden name is Scavoni. Scavani. And I grew up very Italian to the point of my dad was like, because I have Irish and Cherokee and stuff too. My mom's side, she was like Heinz 57, but my dad was like literally like, you're all Italian because you're Italian, shot your others in the kneecaps and they bled out and died. I'm like, this is how I grew up. Why though not? Like that actually was said to me. How funny is that?
Well, at any rate, anyway, we were talking about how
I'm talking about accents and I'm talking about, how we adjust to things.
Yeah.
But if we take off that and we go neutral and we go where we're actually like no filter autistic, we do sound like assholes.
Sometimes I don't have a filter, but it's not for lack of trying. It's because I'll have a little mini conversation in my head and I'm like trying to figure out, find the words. And sometimes you don't have the luxury of that kind of time. You just have to spit it out. And my first language is just fussing. It's just kind of how I was raised.
And a little bit of yelling.
A little bit of yelling. Yeah. Quality time was throwing pots and pans at each other.
Well, as I said, mine was Italian too, so it was loud. It was like, you're yelling, you don't love me.
Right.
Unless you're yelling, unless you have raised voice. Exactly. Same thing.
So, I don't mean to be mean.
Well, I think the best example of this was our very first workshop where I had to translate for you. People were really looking like, what? Because she went into full like Nick mode.
Yeah.
She went to full Nick mode, which is like, if you know her, you know what she's saying. But if you don't, you'll be like, oh, she hates me. She's going to eat me for breakfast. This woman is literally going to eat me.
I just, I have no time to rearrange my words.
Well, I always said, and this is funny, but she's the Sheldon to my Leonard. And when I said that in front of her, she's like, or people around us that were friends, they're like, that makes so much sense now. That makes so much sense. And what do you get when you tell people you're autistic now? That you know.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I get, no, you're not. Makes sense. Are you really? But you're so social.
It's like, oh, that's why you're like that.
But you can talk, but you can look at me in the eyes. That's what I get.
Yeah, I know. I've always had to have a translator, and when I have a close relationship or a close friendship and there is no translator available and that person hasn't sort of taken it upon themselves to become a Nikki translator
and try to understand
you the misunderstandings, the fights over nothing but miscommunications, when it's like, that's not what listen, when you're talking to me, you need to understand what I'm trying to say, not your interpretation of what I'm trying to say. You need to understand what I'm trying to tell you.
But no matter what happens,
nobody does that.
No matter how diplomatic you are, you're not.
I am as God made me.
Well, but I think you're perfect. And I think it's hilarious. And I always understood you. Yes. And you are more chill than you used to be.
Oh my God.
You're I mean, we both are, seriously. Yeah. Like I'm so neutral at this point. I'm so neutral at this point. And as I said, I'm so diplomatic at this point, but I mean it. Like I do. I'm pretty much.
And I don't mean to be.
I'm neutral.
Like I said, I will sound condescending. You sound condescending when you're trying to be nice?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not as much as I did. And I think there's different parts of my life too, because, that's one thing you have to watch when you're autistic is being so overwhelmed you become dissociative. And every time that's happened where I've come back, it's like one of those of it takes a while to adjust. And you're not around people as much and you don't have that habit, like it really does. Like, I mean, 2020 did that with COVID.
Yeah, that's true.
That's happened to a lot of people. Yeah. That's why also people are realizing they're autistic because it started kicking in. Or the wonderful world of menopause when that happens too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's a thing. A lot of folk in my social sphere around my age, we are in our perimenopausal moment. And for a lot of folk, that can awaken, reawaken, enhance, exacerbate, or otherwise an underlying condition that maybe you know about, maybe you're just now finding out about. But the important thing is to educate yourself because you can take control of it. It's no excuse to be an asshole.
No. And like I've had people like, you are the most, like, I've never met anybody like you before that's autistic. That's because you didn't know that person's autistic. And, you know,
Yes,
we still have the thing of like, well, but also stuff that's still out there other than people like us chiming in is all white males.
Exactly.
And it's all like the stereotypical thing that you would see even in movies. Even in movies and stuff, this is happening. But they're starting to have more females. Exactly. But the females are still having the male aspects to them, not being like, we can talk to you.
I know. It's very like
some of us, it's, I mean,
very manic pixie.
You have different personalities though. You can't put everybody in one personality. Also, male, female brains. Oh, Venus and Mars, duh. I mean, really.
I'm just glad people are talking about it now, you know? And
yes.
That's a good thing.
But that's where the information's coming from, not from the books, because it's, or you know, even looking online, anything.
You gotta check
other than people like us.
You gotta check the source.
It's male, white males.
Exactly. So it's really hard for folk. It's hard for women, especially, you know, highly functioning, highly masking women to get a proper diagnosis.
Absolutely. But it still is.
It still is. But you can advocate for yourself, and you can educate yourself, and you can find a community.
I had a client.
Reach out. We're friends.
I had a client in Memphis, which Memphis is not small, okay? And she was a female, and she is misdiagnosing her 16-year-old right now, this doctor's, and she's female. Yeah. She's like, oh, she can look me in the eye. She's not autistic. She can engage with me. She's not autistic.
That's not a thing. And that should not be.
But it's happening right now. Yeah. That's what I mean of like, this is still happening where there's misdiagnosis. It's still happening.
And so for me, like as an ADHD person, I am seeing a lot more of my folk coming out of the woodwork too.
Absolutely. Well, and the whole thing is some people that are ADHD, severely ADHD, are like, oh, I'm autistic too. Well, when you're neurodivergent, especially when you're major, which both of them are, you're going to have a lot of the same traits, a lot of characteristics.
Definitely cross over.
So you're not necessarily autistic, but you are neurodivergent, which ADHD is neurodivergent, autistic's neurodivergent, dyslexic, which this mama is neurodivergent. Yeah. Like OCD even.
And it's a matter of just knowing and like taking control of whatever that is. And
but start going down rabbit holes of, as what I'm saying, people's Instagrams, people's YouTubes, because there's a lot more information out there, and there's more and more every day.
There really is. And
I'm following more and more every day on our Instagram because I'm finding people late diagnosed.
A lot of tools out there. There's a lot of apps out there that are specifically designed by neurodivergent people for neurodivergent people.
And that's what we're trying to add to the world too.
Use your
tools. That's the thing with our games, of everything's for us, but also for, like, you know, the atypical brain. Yeah. Like, I want, you know, everybody us all to be able to connect.
Use the tools, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Everyone can benefit from.
But there is a way our brain works, and we understand that, and we make sure we add that into it. But also, I hope that helps atypicals understand us too.
Exactly. And if you guys have any questions or any topics,
at least ask questions. Yeah. You know, this brings up stuff if you're like, oh, well, I didn't know that before. Well, that's why we're here. Exactly. And that's why we want to bring up stuff, because as we find out more stuff about ourselves, it's one of those of like, I'm remembering so many things, you know, from my past and from when I was younger. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense then. Yeah. You know, and feeling that, you know, like I was diagnosed severely OCD and I was an old soul. That's what I was, you know? The OCD was definite because my patterning was insane.
That's the thing.
Insane.
A lot of high masking autistic women and a lot of high masking ADHD women, we didn't really get a chance to have a childhood. Like I
was an adult.
I've been reading a lot more about this, not because I went out and seeking it. It just comes on my feed, or I see people in my social sphere talking about it. And there's a lot of info out there if you want to look into it. If you feel like maybe that is an experience that you had, definitely let us know.
And we're just talking about our experience and different things we find out. We do not know everybody's experience. We go by the way our brains work. But we want to, hopefully us doing that and us being like open about these things will help you realize stuff too, or somebody you know.
Exactly.
Or even like a snippet so you understand and you start going down your own rabbit hole to figure out yourself. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like that's the whole point of that. We're not saying we know everything. We're just saying this is us.
This is us. This is just us making sense
Because we don't know everything. It comes back to full
sensory
circle.
overlords.
Full circle. We don't think we know everything.
Exactly.
We just know what we know. And the more I know, the more I realize I know nothing.
Yeah, and we're learning. And it's a learning process, you know. And
well, I'm still alive, so I'm still learning. I don't know everything. No.
And I've been doing a lot of work on finding my words. I've been doing a lot of work on finding better words and speaking kinder. Now, obviously, I've been working on this for quite a while, and I still have a long way to go, but you have to start with the way that you talk to yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
that
absolutely.
Is
words are so powerful, especially if you voice them. It's one of those, manifestation is becoming a natural word for a lot of people. I'm seeing it more on like regular television, and it's wonderful because it's a beautiful positive thing. But with manifestation and with anything, it's all about your intention.
Exactly.
And the words you speak, because words are very powerful.
So sometimes when I don't mean to be mean, I am using the most expedient word. I'm using the most efficient phrase to perfectly convey what I'm trying to say without putting it through a specific filter. And the more I practice speaking kindly to myself, the more my first language filter or my non-filter will be kind words. Right now it's not. I'm still very blunt, but
well, and some of it is learned. And some of it is learned in how we grow up.
Yeah.
But you can change those things.
Yes, exactly.
It is one of those, that is your decision. But there's also like looking at it of like, what is my actual core and what do I want to keep and what is actually me?
Right.
Or what is learned behavior?
Yes. And I've had someone say, all right, so you know how earlier when I was like, you need to pay attention to what I'm trying to say, not how you interpret it. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Actually, I've had conversations about this where communication is the message that is conveyed. In other words, if the person you're talking to does misinterpret it, it's really their interpretation that is the correct one. It doesn't matter what
well, it's
you
correct to
mean
them.
say.
It's correct to them, like no matter what.
According to the physical dynamic laws of what communication is, their interpretation is what communication defined is. Doesn't matter what you meant to say, which I find so confusing.
That is confusing.
So confused.
Well, because but the thing is, everybody has the ability to interpret it a different way.
Exactly. That's what
because
I mean.
That's why you have different perspectives. Because
so at the end of the day, it's like it is my responsibility.
But I know atypicals that still like misunderstand each other. It's not just, you know what I mean? We just happen to do it more, and they put an excuse on us. It's like that's why.
It's a thing, and I'm knowing this. I'm taking ownership. I'm taking responsibility of it.
But there's also only so much you can do, because in the end, you. I was saying this earlier today. Of like, I can filter all I want to and be the nicest person ever, extra, but at times that'll be misinterpreted too.
Well,
and that's them of like, I make sure I go out of my way for you, yet you still think I'm an asshole.
It also has to do with like your relationships. High masking at work all day, every day, 24/7, no worries. But when I'm at home, maybe I don't really put that mask on. Maybe I don't really put that filter on. So in a way, if I'm just letting myself talk like myself around you, it means that I'm comfortable with you. It's like you should take that as the compliment that it is.
Well, in the work environment, not everybody has to know all of you.
Exactly.
And even in a personal environment, not everybody has to know all of you, because it's okay.
Exactly.
Like that's you.
Yeah. So
especially with that of like, well, you can't handle all of me.
Right.
You're just going to keep feeling this way. So I'm not going to make myself, but I'm not going to make myself vulnerable when you're just going to be a turd no matter what.
Or if I don't really care about, if I don't care about you, I'm not going to worry about you. I'm not going to be blunt. I'm not going to tell you the real, because I don't really, I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear.
Well, I'm not going to put the energy into you if I don't care.
But if I do care, and if I am blunt and mean to you, then it's because I love you.
Well, you're putting effort into somebody, that means you care. I don't have the bandwidth anymore in my life. When I was younger, I did.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where, there's been waves of like, I've pushed myself to the point of, as I said, becoming dissociative or becoming so like sick that I can't even handle my own business.
You gotta handle your own business.
And I can't do it anymore.
You gotta.
Especially like I'm just getting out of a huge celiac flare up that I've had for years now.
Guys.
And
look at our girl. Just look at her.
But I'm so tired. And it takes me ages just to be able to have a phone call with somebody. And like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, and I know some people, but if you're my friend, you know.
Yeah.
And like, I want to put that effort with you, but I talked to a friend for like an hour and a half, and I hadn't talked to her like 5 months, and it took me like at least 2 or 3 days to like get myself back.
To recuperate.
I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it wasn't like a super crazy effort conversation. I wasn't like having to say all the words. It was just so much.
Peopling.
And I can't anymore. Even if I love you, I love you. But you're going to have to give me a couple weeks to get back to you. Sorry. Yeah. I can't. I've never been a big phone person anyway.
And
I've never been a big phone person.
We don't mean to be mean. Sometimes we just can't.
I just don't have the energy.
You know. So if that is a thing, do you guys like the phone? Would you rather text? Would you rather pick up the phone? Would you rather someone be blunt with you, or would you rather them kind of try to dress it up in frilly words? Let us know what you think. And we're going to continue on with this podcast format. And you guys can listen to us. You guys can find us on the Spotify. You guys can, if you have YouTube music, it'll just keep rolling. It's
awesome. We have it set up to a podcast, so you can just totally go to that folder, right?
Yep. So check out our new podcast format, and if there's anything particular that you want us to talk about,
absolutely, we're all about it. We want you to feel part of it. Thanks, guys.
Bye,
love
everyone.
you.